podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our quick publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Red, your lunchtime catch-up on all things Liverpool FC on a Monday after Liverpool began their Premier League season with a 2-0 victory at Portman Road over Ipswich Town. The proverbial game of two halves. We were very poor in the first half and very, very good in the second half. I thought in the first half they came out full of steam, full of running, full of aggression. They pressed us high, disrupted our build-up play, forced us to go long too often. They caused us problems with their own attacking play because they were full of energy. There was a lot of movement in midfield. They were able to run through us at times. We couldn't get a handle in there. Midfield couldn't win a tackle. Just fouled constantly. We weren't winning our duels up front. We weren't winning our duels at centre-back, particularly, obviously, Jarrell Quansah. Quansah was taken off at half-time. Ibu came on. We pushed up. We got more aggressive. We condensed the field a little bit. But the big factor for me was that they ran out of steam. They blew the legs out of themselves in that first half. And once the game settled then in the second half, once they stopped being as disruptive, some of the football we played was absolutely sensational. Trent just took control of the game, zoned in on his shorter passing and just started pinging the ball here, there and everywhere. Gravenberch was much better second half. Alexis was much better second half. Szoboszlai was outstanding second half. Salah is just a robot at this point, a cyborg. I don't know how there's any kind of debate around who the best winger wide forward in Premier League history is. It's Mo, and it's Mo by a country mile. 300 goals or assists in Liverpool colours is just an absolutely sensational record. And when we look at what Mo has done for Liverpool, it's just ridiculous. It's just absolutely ridiculous. In games against the other five members of the Big Six, he has just tormented them non-stop. In games against mid-table teams, he has annihilated them non-stop. In games against newly promoted teams, he's just a savage. Welcome to the Premier League. Here's your ass kicking. He sets up the goal for Jota. It's a gorgeous little move. Ibu fires the ball into Gravenberch. Good touch, good pass, out to Trent. Sensational ball by Trent for Mo. Mo could go on and score himself. No question. Jota has just missed a great chance off a wonderful Trent cross. But Mo feeds him. Jota finishes with ease, and it's 1-0. And then the second goal comes minutes later. It's a nicely worked move. Szoboszlai plays the ball for Mo. There's a little nick off the defender. Mo gets to it first and finishes comfortably. We should have been 4-0 up by the time Mo scored our second, because after a lovely move began by Diaz lifts his finish over the bar from about 3 yards. Credit to the keeper, I suppose. He did fling himself out at Diaz's feet, but Lucho needs to do a lot better there. And Jota should score the header. Really should score the header. Conor Bradley also missed a good chance later. Mo missed another good chance. Just a dominant second half with the Reds really starting to play some wonderful football. Their big threat in the first half had been kind of going direct up to their striker, Delap. His hold-up play, to be fair, was very good. Their midfield was able to break forward and outrun ours to get into attacking positions. Hutchinson looked decent on one side. Obviously, there was some controversy with the gentleman that played on the other side. So, in the first half, the referee was blowing his whistle non-stop, and Wes Burns gets booked. A little bit of a soft yellow, I thought. But then later in that half, there's a very blatant, obvious, deliberate handball, and he doesn't get booked. And I said to Trev and Jim on Raw, I'm convinced it was because, well, two reasons. One, he'd already been booked. If he hadn't been booked, he probably gets booked. But also, if it wasn't the first game of the season, I think he gets the second yellow. If it was even the second half, I think he gets the yellow. But he was causing us some trouble because the one player in red who wasn't good first or second half was Andy Robertson, who couldn't get to grips with the fella at all. They were playing into him, and he was able to bring the likes of Chaplin and Hutchinson and Luongo and Morrissey into the game. Him and Delap caused us trouble. With Ibu coming on, he took Delap completely out of the game. Delap had that one moment where he spun Kwanzaa and just didn't look good for Jarrell. Jarrell wasn't winning his aerials either. But with Ibu coming on much quicker, much more physical, he dealt really well with Delap. And then Burns obviously gets hurt. And that cost them one of their outlets because they brought on Ben Johnson and went from what was a 4-2-3-1 to more of a kind of 3-4-3 with Johnson more as a wing back and Davis pushed up a little bit on the left. So it disrupted their play. Part of it was us, part of it was them. But to be fair, we were just all over them second half. And some of the football that was played was outrageous. And long may that continue. I think they're going to be fine. I do. I think they'll stay up. They've got City next. Get the two best teams in the league out of the way. And then it becomes a little bit easier for you. If you don't get trounced by us or by City, you've got a chance. And that's not their best 11 either. Like, they were missing their first choice goalkeeper. I think Johnson will become a starter for them at right back. That strengthens them. I think he's a better fullback than Tuanzebe. You've got Calvin Phillips there now on loan, so he'll come into midfield. Jens Kahoust, I think, is due this week. He'll come into midfield. They've bought Sammy Smodics. I think he starts for them. And it looks like they're still in the market for a couple more players. Hammer from Sheffield United, Ahmed Hozic from Sheffield United, and Broja from Chelsea. I think they're looking at the two Sheffield United lads on permanent deals, and Broja maybe on a loan with an obligation if they stay up. So, like, they're being aggressive in the market. They're being very ambitious, spending quite a lot of money, but that's what you have to do when you come up into this division. Especially a club like them who, remember, 2 years ago they were starting life in League One. Or starting the season, I should say, in League One. They'd been in League One for a while. They were starting in League One 2 seasons ago, and quite a few of these players were there with them at the time. So they've got a quality gap that they need to fill, and to their credit, they're doing it quite well so far. Jacob Greaves, I thought, had a good game. Maybe could have been a little bit better in the goals, but overall, I thought he had a good game. Hutchinson carried a threat first half, and Delap carried a big threat first half. They're the 3 big money signings that they started. Obviously, Smodics came off the bench. Johnson, who they brought in on free, came off the bench. Neither of them got much impact, but because we were so dominant second half. But just to go back to Trent, obviously a lot of talk right now around his contract, you know, the fact that he is the best right back in the world, one of the best right backs of all time. He's easily the best Premier League right back of all time. He's the club vice captain. He's a homegrown player, you know, came through the academy, all that kind of stuff. 22-23, he was dreadful. absolutely dreadful, until he got put into that midfield role. And from then, he played pretty well till the end of the season. Then last season, we saw that inverting stuff going on non-stop, and he had a lot of very mixed performances. He fell in love with his long passing too much, forgot about the short game, forgot about defending, and just got caught up, I think, in quite a lot of waffle, and had an uneven season. Also had an injury that did keep him out for a while, but he had some really, really great games, some big, big games for us, and then he had a lot of bad games for us as well. And defensively, he was crap all season. This season is one game old, and he looks reinvigorated. He looks refreshed. I thought defensively on Saturday, he was actually more impressive than he was on the ball. And he was really good on the ball second half. But defensively, he was good for the 90. I thought he dealt really well with Hutchinson. He had a couple of brilliant bits of covering defending as well. One off a set piece of ours where he had to track back. He did really well to slow Hutchinson up. Dom did well to get back, and Kwanzaa got back as well, and they cut off the pass, and between them they forced Hutchinson into a fairly weak shot from the edge of the box. I thought that was a really mature all-round performance from Trent, and it was a really good sign. And hopefully, as you know, we're all hoping that the new contract will get done. I know people are getting frustrated over these contracts with him and Virgil and Mo, but I mean, your anger's been aimed at the wrong people. I mean, why is it that they were allowed to come into this summer with 1 year left on their contract? Hughes and Edwards didn't do that. They weren't at the club. Look at the people making the decisions for the last 12 to 24 months. They're the people to point to. They allowed this to happen, that all three of them entered this year with 12 months left. Now, those contracts run out next year, but the bigger thing is that in January, all three of them can start speaking to clubs from abroad about Bosmans. And we know that there's Real Madrid interest in Trent. We know that if Mo becomes available on a free, PSG will offer him an obscene amount of money. We know the Saudis will offer him an obscene amount of money. Regardless of what anybody says, every club in the world would take Trent, Virgil and Mo. Because those three, along with Alisson, remain the best in the world in their respective positions. And as we see constantly, they're always the measuring stick. Always the measuring stick. When someone wants to hype Bukayo Saka, they compare him to Mo. When someone wants to hype William Saliba or whoever the centre-back is, they compare him to Virgil. When people want to hype up Reece James, they compare him to Trent. When people want to hype up whatever new goalkeepers had a good performance that week, they compare him to Alisson. And that's the greatest compliment right wingers, right backs, centre backs and goalkeepers can be paid, is to be compared to these old timers, because that's what they are. They are all timers in this league, and generally they are all timers. Virgil is in the very elite tier of centre backs all time. Mo is in the very elite tier of wingers all time. Trent might be the best right back ever. And Ali is in that elite tier of goalkeepers all time as well. So the best compliment you can pay to any player aged 18 or 17 in the case of Lamine Yamal, 17 to say 23, 24, 25, the best compliment you can pay them is to compare them to one of our four lads. In the same way that, you know, any defensive midfielder coming through now gets compared against Rodri, or historically against Busquets, or historically beyond that against a Rijkaard or Redondo, people of that ilk. Any central midfielder you want to compare them to Gerrard and Scholes and Lampard, and, you know, if you're more historic, you go maybe to a Lothar Matthäus, who's the best midfielder of all time. But that's the type of conversations you're having, and that's the type of conversations people are having about R4, whether or not they realise it or not. Some of them think they're having great banter, but what they're actually doing is they're showing that these 4 lads from Liverpool, well, 1 lad from Liverpool and 3 lads that were brought into Liverpool, these 4 lads are the measuring stick at their position and remain so. And the unfortunate thing for our lads is that they can only ever be compared against themselves. So when I say Trent had an uneven year last year, if Reece James had the season Trent had last year, it'd be the best season of his career. It just would. It'd be the best season of his career. But Trent can only be compared to Trent or some historic right back. Virgil can only be compared to Virgil or some historic centre back. Mo can only be compared to Mo or some historic winger. And Ali can only be compared to Ali or a younger version of Manuel Neuer, like going back 10 years, Gigi Buffon, or whoever else you want to put into that very elite category. Those goalkeepers that have been the best in the world for a prolonged spell. And this is the standard that those 4 lads in particular have set for themselves. So, obviously, when we, as fans who've watched every game these lads have played for us, look at the contract situation, think, Christ, we could lose 3 of them in a year. And that is it is a real possibility that we could lose 3 of them in a year. I'm not saying it's a big possibility, but it is a possibility. And that is frustrating, but it's also scary to think about. Like, take the 4 best players out of any team. Look at the great United team that won the treble. Now take Jaap Stam, Paul Scholes, Roy Keane, and Dennis Irwin out of it. Or Ryan Giggs, or Beckham. Whoever you view as the 4th. Stam and Keane are the top 2. Actually, Schmeichel would be the more obvious one. Take Schmeichel out, take Stam out, take Keane out, take Scholes out. Now, I know they didn't have Keane and Scholes in the final. They still had the other 2, though. But take them out. Do you think they win the treble? Or do they win nothing that year? Most likely they win nothing. Because they went up against a great Arsenal team that year. Take Arsenal. Take the Invincibles. Take Sol Campbell out of that team. Take Ashley Cole out of that team. Take Vieira out of that team and take Henry out of that team. There's their 4 best players. Do they go unbeaten and win the league? Do they? Fuck. Not a hope. They probably don't get top 4. As good and all as the rest of the team was. Take Pep's Barcelona. Take Messi and the 3 boys in midfield out of it. And just replace them with, a good player in each position. Not even just an average guy. Put a good player in. They're still going to be far short of what they were. And Saki's Milan. Take Baresi and Maldini. Hullet. And either Rijkaard or Van Basten out. Like, they're not winning jack shit. You take the 4 best players out of any team. And it's scary. Because we know the 3 boys could leave. And obviously, with Ali, with this Mamardashvili thing, a lot of people have just made the decision that, he's leaving in 12 months. But it sounds like we actually want Mamardashvili to come in and be loaned out for 2 years, not 1. And in 2 years, things might look very different with Alisson. A couple more injuries, a little bit older. Mamardashvili might be right there ready to take over from him. But there's nobody that you can look around at and think, well, if Trent goes, who comes in? There's other really good right backs in the game, but there's nobody that could do what Trent does. You can get someone in who's better defensively, but you don't have what he offers on the ball. You can get someone in that's got more pace and is maybe better on the overlap, but they don't have his passing, they don't have his crossing ability. Maybe a good crosser, but they're not going to be Trent. What right winger would we get in? Brian Mbomo seems to be the choice of the week. He's a good player. He's a good player, no question. But to come in and replace Mo, and I'm not talking about goals and assists because no one can do that. I'm talking about performance level. It's just nobody out there. There's young players like Minta and Sula and Guler who maybe in 2 or 3 or 4 years, but not now, they'd be your better bet rather than someone like Mbomo, but you'd have to wait for them to develop. And with Virgil, I mean, I don't even know where you'd begin. I genuinely don't. Dean Huijsen's really, really good, but he doesn't have Virgil's pace, doesn't have his strength. Now, he's young and that can develop, but he's not going to develop the same kind of pace. Lenny Yoro went to United. There isn't another standout 18, 19, 20-year-old centre-back that you look at and think, oh, he might be him. Diamande? Maybe. But he doesn't have Virgil's passing ability. He doesn't read the game as well as Virgil. Doesn't have that command, that organisation, that leadership. He's a quiet individual, noted to be a quiet individual. So it is a scary thought to think, well, what's this team going to look like in 12 months if the 3 lads leave for free and if Ali goes? Well, at least we'd have Mamardashvili, so we know that part. But what about the other 3 positions? That is a scary thought. But it also shouldn't colour too much because ultimately they can't speak to anybody else until January. That gives us September, October, November, and December. If in December nothing's been done with any of them, then it's 5 alarm fires everywhere. It is real reason for concern. But I'm pretty confident that when this window closes and September starts, we'll see real movement on the contracts. I do also think part of it with the contract situation is the players wanting to see the club. You know, Jurgen's gone. Okay, we like this manager, but now what? You know, now what? You say you're going to get us the players to go and win the major honours, because be under no illusion. Jurgen might have been happy to collect relationships, but Mo isn't. Virgil isn't. Ali isn't. I doubt Trent is. They want to win. Because in 20 years, when they look back at their careers as men in their 50s, Trent will be in his late 40s, but the others will be in their 50s. They're not going to tell their grandkids about how they were friends with James Milner. They will tell their grandkids about how they won 2 or 3 Champions Leagues. How they're icons at this football club in the northwest of England. That's what they want to be able to tell people. Not, oh yeah, no, it's great. No, I'm friends with Dejan Lovren, I am. Yeah, look, I have him here on Facebook and everything. Like, that's Jurgen's thing. It's not what elite level players do. Do you think Mo puts himself through what he puts himself through every summer to be in that shape? To be friends with people? Way to fuck. Really good game from the Reds in the second half. Really good win to start the season. A clean sheet on the road. Might not seem like a big deal, but we only kept 4 last year, and the first one didn't come until early December. So that's a really good start. What else came out over the weekend? Oh, the Joe Gomez stuff. So Joe was left out of the matchday squad. He has been told that if he wants to leave, he is free to leave. And, you know, there's a lot of clubs interested, but it does sound like we have set a fairly strong price on him, somewhere in that 40 million range. I think, you know, given the prices you're seeing banded about, given Max Kilman went for 40 million or thereabouts, he might be even a little bit more. Certainly Joe Gomez is warranting that kind of money. If Crystal Palace were to sell Guehi to the tune would they be a team that comes in for him? There's been links to Fulham. Could make sense. They've got money. We know they've got money. And both of those clubs being in London would make sense for Joe. That's where he's from. He's been linked to Villa. He's been linked to Villa for a while. Gerrard wanted him at Villa when he was there. And, you know, he's good friends with Hendrick. They came through the Charlton Academy together. And he fit well at Villa. He could play centre-back with Konza at right-back or vice versa. They are been linked with Gertruda. Joe is a better player than him. He's older, but he's a better player than him. And I think would fit their timeline quite well because I think Villa are in kind of win now, but also eye on the future. But Joe would help them to win now and, you know, maybe do well in the Champions League and potentially get back in for next year, especially with it likely that there'll be 5 Premier League spots. Villa's the one I think makes the most sense. Toon is interesting. Obviously, there was the whole Gomez to Toon, Gordon to us fiasco. I do think Newcastle like Joe Gomez, but it looks like they've got other targets. Now, maybe they'll come back in. We'll see. We know they've got the money because they've bid 60 plus million for Guehi. They've solved their profit and sustainability issues. And for the people that don't seem to understand, they amortize the transfer fee across 5 years. So if they pay 40 for Joe, it doesn't go on their books this year for 40. It goes in their books this year for 8. So they won't need to sell anybody to make that up at all. He'd be a good fit next to Botman. You go Livramento, Gomez, Botman, and Hall when everybody's fit and up to speed. That's a pretty good back four. Would fit how Eddie Howe wants to play because Joe has the pace Botman doesn't have, so they can play that bit higher. I could see that being a move that makes sense. I think Villa is the best move for him from a footballing point of view, from a financial point of view, and also because it's that bit closer to London where, you know, there was reports at the start of the season, Sam Maguire was the one that had them, that he was keen on leaving. He wanted to go back down south. He wants to be closer to home and he wants to play regularly. Now, obviously Birmingham's not in the south, but it is closer to the south than Liverpool is, and he would play regularly at Villa. He'd play every game at Fulham. He'd play every game at Palace, assuming he's fit. I think he's going to have options. There's been some suggestion of Bayern Munich. I struggle to see that one, though, with Jonathan Tah not being done yet. Just don't know that you'd go from Tah to Gomez. They're completely different profiles of centre-backs. Gomez is better than Jonathan Tah, mind. Jonathan Tah hasn't developed at all. He's no better now than he was when he was at Hamburg many years ago. It'll be a shame to see Joe go. But 9 years in, he's played over 3,000 minutes twice. That's just not enough football for a fella his age. So, understandable that he would want to go. Slott's new identity shows, but Robertson back too soon. No, just not good enough. He hasn't been good enough for 2 years. His legs are gone. He doesn't have the technical ability. He doesn't have the right mindset for what Arne wants. Robert wants to just bomb up and down and swing crosses in. And it was great under Klopp. Absolutely phenomenal. For 5 years under Klopp, Andy Robertson was an absolute machine. But now, no. Inside story of Liverpool FC transfers under Klopp and Rodgers. Obviously, Ian Graham is doing a book tour. And he's had quite a bit to say about Brendan Rodgers, including dropping the long forgotten, but at the time known nugget that Rodgers wanted to buy Tom Ince instead of Phil Coutinho. Harvey Blair apparently has been told he is free to pursue a permanent move. I understand. Look, he's not going to be good enough to play for us, certainly not in the next few years. So it does make sense, but there was something about him in pre-season that I did really like. Just the way he carried himself, I quite liked. Andy Robertson has given the squad's view on no summer transfers. Well, he didn't really. He gave his own opinion. And of course, his own opinion is going to be tinted by the fact that, well, if we bring in a defender, a left-footed defender, he's the one that's out of the team. He is the weak link in that defensive line. So, of course, he doesn't want us to make a signing in that position. So I wouldn't pay too much heed to what any player has to say. We've got Arna talking up Mo and saying he has many years left in him, which, for me, points to Arna saying to the club, look, keep this guy around. And the club, I think, being open to it, because I'd imagine those conversations have been had. And I don't think Arna would say that if Edwards and Hughes had said to him, look, we're not going to do a long contract for him. I think they're definitely going to be open to it. Journalists reveal new details that question Liverpool's Martin Zubimendi claims. Though Martin Zubimendi was reported as a target for Liverpool until the start of the week, the midfielder seemingly knew he would not join much earlier. Series of updates unfolded, yada, yada, yada. Simon Hughes has revealed the midfielder has told family members that he intended to stay around the start of pre-season on August 5th. Well, this is horseshit. And quite frankly, I would trust Paul Joyce and David Ornstein a lot more when it comes to anything transfer related than I would Simon Hughes. I did also note that after Real Sociedad lost at home to Rayo Vallecano yesterday, their manager said that he couldn't be certain he wouldn't leave at the last minute of the transfer window. So we'll see. Look, I mean, I don't know, but I frankly, I don't believe that from Simon Hughes. I don't believe it at all. What else do we have? That's pretty much it from there. Anfield Watch, anything new? We'll check in with Dave O.C. Kopp to see what he has for us. And then we'll go to AnfieldIndex.com to wrap up. So, Dave O.C. Kopp, Diogo Jota celebrates historic achievement with his esports organisation. Divock Origi to depart AC Milan. After 2 years there, Milan have just had enough and they're letting him leave on a free. And he spent one of those years on loan with Forest and was not good for them at all. Just a couple of pieces on Mamardashvili. There was links over the week. No, there wasn't. No, sorry. Let me rephrase that. The betting odds on Jared Branthwaite joining Liverpool shifted drastically over the weekend. Now, the Echo have come out and said that there's been no contact between the clubs. It's obviously a very hard deal to see happening. The last player to move from Everton to us was Abel Xavier. Now, Houllier did sign 2 players from the Ev because he also brought in Nick Barmby, I want to say was the other one. Barmby went Spurs, Borough, Everton, us, yeah? I'm fairly certain that's right. Yeah, and then on to Leeds. Yeah, so Houllier signed 2, and no other Liverpool manager has even, I don't think, attempted to sign an Everton player since. You don't know what Mishiri. They're desperate for money. We know that. They're in the worst financial situation of any club in the Premier League by a country mile. We know that. John Textor has just entered a period of exclusivity to go through their accounts and see what kind of mess he would be walking into if he decided to buy the club. They've had multiple other people walk away from the potential of buying the club. They had that whole 12-month fiasco with 777 Partners, who are now one of the biggest creditors. They also owe a fortune on the stadium. They owe a fortune to Michael Dell and his investment company. They're facing potential administration. Like, to get 75 million for Branthwaite would lift a lot of their kind of short-term problems and maybe give them more a window to get a sale agreed with someone like Texter. But I'm not sure. We'll see. I highly doubt it happens, but it was interesting the way the odds moved. And it wasn't like, some people say, oh, the odds makers are shifting it to get more people to lump on. That's not necessarily how that works. Like, there are rules and guidelines they have to operate under, and I just don't think they can do that. So, we'll see. The generous salary Liverpool reportedly offered to Martin Zubimendi. 51 million release clause. In a printed edition of Mundo Deportivo, Liverpool were preparing to offer him €9 million a season, which is around £150,000. Around £150,000 per week, which, would fit. Anfield Watch, piece about Zubimendi, piece about Carragher, waffling about Raheem Sterling, piece about Trent, transfer latest, revealed what Liverpool missed out on as Leverkusen CEO gives inside track on Xabi Alonso. Who cares? Bosley. Secret behind revitalised Mo Salah. I mean, he was just carrying injury last season, and he'd been away at AFCON and he was exhausted. I'm not sure there's any real reason for talk of revitalisation. Liverpool's top Martin Zubimendi alternative left out of squad. The only mention of 10 Coop miners as a target for us has come from garbage outlets in Italy. The idea of him as the top Martin Zubimendi alternative when he doesn't play that position is utter stupidity. AnfieldIndex.com then. Let's see what's what. David Lynch on Gravenberg. He's got the skills for Liverpool's number 6 role. No, he does not. Zubimendi's Liverpool move still. Let's have a look at this. David Lynch, Liverpool are planning for life after Alisson. Liverpool remain interested in Mark Guehi. I mean, have we ever really been interested in him? I'm not sure. Doesn't really tick the boxes of the type of centre-back we'd normally sign. Journalist slams Arne Slot for throwing João Quansah under the bus. So I think it was Barry Glendenning. I just wouldn't listen to anything he has to say personally. Report. Liverpool's Zubimendi move still possible despite snub. So... Oh yeah, there was a couple of articles come out in the Spanish press in recent days that suggested that it was still a possibility. And I don't know. I kind of feel like we will try again. I feel like we'll try again. I do. Podcast-wise, there is the Media Matters with Dave Davis and David Lynch. There is the new podcast we've got called The Final Whistle, which you can find on EPL Index. There's the latest rival recon. That's obviously Harry doing Harry things and having a chat about other clubs and, what to expect from them this season. Dave Davis covered the Daily Red over the weekend, And that's pretty much it. That is it from me anyway. I'm here tomorrow. Trev is here Wednesday. And then me Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Dave Davis next Sunday. And yeah. Look, the season's underway. It's been a good start. There are, 2 weeks left in the window? 12 days now? Just under 2 weeks. So, time to get moving, Mr. Hughes. Make some phone calls. Pay a release clause to Porto if you can't get the fella from Real Sociedad. Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
In this election, we each face a question. What kind of country do we want to live in? We choose freedom. The freedom not just to get by, but get ahead. The freedom to make decisions about your own body. We believe in the promise of America, and we're ready to fight for it. Because when we fight, we win.
I'ma keep on running, 'cause a winner don't quit on themselves.
Paid for by Harris for President.